Well, hey, Hannah.
Hey, Joe. How's it going?
Well, my voice may sound a little hoarse because I've been cheering pretty loud at some CCFC games. So.
I heard about the big win for the very first game. That's awesome.
Yeah, they've been doing well. But so if I sound an octave lower and gravelly.
It's from all the Vamos Foxes you've been chanting, right?
That's right. That's right. But it's been going well. And I couldn't be more excited about sharing with people this conversation that we got to have today.
Absolutely.
I mean, the work that Door Ministries has done for so many years. I mean, Steve Key was one of the first people that I really got to meet when I got to town, and to see, the impact and the way that he helped grow that organization for like 30 years. And now to have this extraordinary leadership team that they have now, it's such an important part of our city. And so I'm just excited for people to get to hear more about it.
I was going to ask you, I mean, they both of the folks on our interview today, Ryan Ross and Orel Henry, are both newer to the organization relatively to its entire existence. What have you seen in your time in High Point in the nonprofit space, just major changes that you've noticed?
Yeah, well, you're right, they are, but I think the power of Open Door has long been its board and its volunteers that have been consistent, right? So you have this really strong leadership of supporters on that board, people who regularly come into the space to serve, and then you have this newer leadership that's come in with all of these skills. I mean, Orel and Ryan, just their backgrounds, their knowledge, what they bring to Open Door, really takes that platform of what Open Door has been doing and takes it to a next level. And it needs to go there. Like homelessness is such an important issue that we don't talk about enough. We see it. I mean, I think we all see it. Like we drive along, Main Street or Eastchester, Westchester, like the stoplights, like we see it. Yeah. But this episode, I think, helped me think deeper about it and kind of reframe how I'm thinking about homelessness, and what Open Door is doing is so much more comprehensive than what I think most of us think a shelter does.
Absolutely. I was looking at their mission statement, and the Open Door mission statement is to serve, empower, and minister to guests in order to prevent and end hunger and homelessness through advocacy, education, housing, and coordination of services, which is, again, such an undertaking. And I think in listening back to this episode, and I think what a lot of listeners will hear is that the need has grown so much, but they've grown so much, and they actually need us as community members to come alongside them to help continue that growth and to meet the needs of not just homeless people in our community, but actually our neighbors, our community members. And so listening to this, having this conversation with that open mind of, let me get rid of the things that I previously thought I knew about the experience of homelessness, and instead go into this wanting to be educated about what that experience actually looks like from two people who spend a lot of time in that space, I think is really important to go into this one with that open mind.
Yeah, I learned a lot. So
yeah, me too.
Let's take a listen.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here today on High Point's Voices Discovered. We are hearing from so many great nonprofits this year, and Open Door Ministries is one of those that we're just really honored and privileged that you guys sat down to share with us. So let's start with y'all introducing yourselves, saying your name, and then what your role is with Open Door.
I'm Ryan Ross, and I'm the Executive Director of Open Door.
And I'm Orel Henry. I'm the Director of Operations at Open Door Ministries.
Awesome. Can you both share a little bit about what inspired you to first begin careers in nonprofit, specifically in the areas of homelessness and food security?
I was coming out of city management after 2016-17. I was pretty disillusioned with just the political environment of the world, and I think that affected not just Washington politics. It went all the way down to the smallest cities.
Yeah.
It was very divisive time. And so I was just, I was pretty burned out on it by then. Anyways, I'd been doing it for 16 years. And I started into being a city manager. I was an assistant city manager when I was 26 years old. So I got into it pretty early. And so I didn't know what Open Door was, and I wasn't really looking for a nonprofit job. I was kind of hoping to make a profit. I actually had a friend, and I was telling him I just want to change. I want to do something different. And I did some private. I worked in a private business for about a year and a half, and it just really wasn't me. But it was good. It was nothing wrong with the business. It just wasn't where I fit in. And I was talking to him one day, and he was a retired city manager, and he goes, "There's this place in High Point." And he goes, "They've been around for a long time, and they're doing really well." But he goes, they need to take the next step. And he said, between your government background and in my educational background, I've got a master's degree in psychology and a master's degree in public administration. So he's like, between those two things, I think you could work with the city and the government and on the nonprofit side to help people. And he said, I think it'd be a good fit. And I hadn't really, up to that point, given it a whole lot of thought. And so he told me who to contact, and I contacted the board chair at the time, had a couple of conversations, and sent in a resume, and here I am.
Here you are.
So for me, I grew up in the projects, and up until I was 5. So I saw my mom and dad making ends meet, trying to do whatever to move out of the projects into the middle class. And we did. And so I'm a man of faith. So when I saw their struggle, I knew that I had to do something where not only I can take care of them, but take care of my family that eventually I would have. And so I focus a lot about working hard and also trying to make sure that I am the best at whatever I do. And so that got me more into for-profit jobs, because it was about making that money at the big corporations. And so that's what I did for many years, and I strived at it, even to Ryan's point, going to school, getting my master's, and then now working on my PhD. It was always one of those things to be the best. So now, remember I said I'm a man of faith. So I'm doing all these things for these big corporations, helping them with operations, trying to, make money, and always about sustainability. It's not about only today, but tomorrow. So I was doing all these things. And then all of a sudden, I heard the Lord this year say, hey, I need you to work, on something from a nonprofit standpoint to help these people that you're helping on the other side, but you really get in there. And all of a sudden, I got a call that Open Door was interested in having someone to run operations. I called Ryan. Ryan invited me over, walked me through, and told me everything that was going on. And the first thing in my mind I said was no. I said no. And I told the Lord, this is not it. This is something I pushed against.
Yeah.
Working in for-profit, I know nonprofit, I know the struggle. I would give you money. I don't want to work in it because I know the work. But the Lord said, no, this is where I want you to be. And I remember talking to Ryan, and telling him I'm coming. And, we joked about it that day, he was like, hey, if you come back the second day, I know it's good. And, but it is truly a blessing, because every day that you're there and you're seeing the work that you're doing in the eyes of those that are in way less, opportunities, have way less more than you, but just want something simple, just someone to talk to. Somebody can help with food, stuff like that. That's where I felt like, man, this is where it's worth it.
All right, well, give us the history of Open Door. I feel like I was in High Point for maybe a good 5 years before I realized that the people that were referring to urban ministry were also talking about Open Door. And I didn't realize that it's just like the old timers still call it urban ministries. And I was like, what is this place? I couldn't find it on Google. So give us a little bit of your history, what Open Door does.
Exactly. And I still see that a lot as well. So urban ministry started back in the 70s, I think. It evolved into Open Door Ministries in the 90s. They had I think they were working with the food bank on one side doing, food, and then Urban Ministries was the shelter. And when they combined, that combined into Open Door Ministries.
Okay.
And they built the new building that we are currently in 1990. When they built it in 1990, they were anticipating housing 12 to 15 people at any time and doing 50 meals a day. So we have grown exponentially since then, but that's kind of the history of where it originated from, and where we're going is just we keep adding on and getting bigger and adding programming going forward.
Yeah, and you still have to chuckle when some of the folks that have been around a while refer to it as the new building.
It is the new building. It is the new building that we just built.
That new building's been around.
They have 33 years now. 33 years now. So.
And you all are using every square inch.
Yeah,
absolutely. We're well beyond max capacity right now.
Well, tell us a little bit about, for people who maybe aren't familiar with what Open Door does, tell us a little bit about what those areas of services or programs are that reach the community.
We offer six primary programs. Everything revolves around food insecurity and housing. Okay. So we have the shelter, we have emergency assistance, a food pantry, a soup kitchen that we call the Father's Table. We have permanent supportive housing, which is for people that are chronically homeless and for whatever reason they're just not either emotionally, mentally, or physically able to sustain housing without some assistance. And then we have veterans housing. It's the Arthur Cassell transitional housing. And inside of Arthur Cassell, we have a low demand component of that, which is also at the main Open Door facility. Arthur Cassell is at a different facility. We have 2 locations. And so that we're continually growing programming wise. We offer a lot of programming in a small space. We hear all the time when people come to visit us, we had no idea you did all of these things. A lot of people think it's funny because a lot of people are saying, we thought all you were was the soup kitchen, food pantry, and then others will come and go, we just thought you were the shelter. We offer a lot more than that. And Orel can kind of expand upon, the numbers of people we serve and how we reach out into the community.
Yeah, so like Ryan said, the need has increased a lot, and we haven't even gotten to the holidays yet. So we have seen increase literally from April until now. And so we're serving about 7,500 folks now. On Thursday, we had mentioned 7,200. But recently, as we looked at the numbers, it's been about 7,500. I mean, again, the numbers has increased, and that's just for the Father's Table. That's not including what we give out as far as pantry. Every week we serve the community. Our food pantry gives out food to those that need food. And so we give them a good package of food in boxes and stuff. And that has increased. We're talking about not only individuals, but families looking for food.
Yeah.
With the economy and everything that's going on, a lot of folks are looking for places, or looking at places like us to help them to be able to prepare meals and also to eat food. So,
well, I would think that with food prices going up, with all the pandemic aid having ceased,
that's correct.
You're seeing more people, but at the same time, I have to think your own food costs are going up.
Yeah, and that's the challenge for operations. Because I have to be able to make sure everything is running. Ryan mentioned we have 6 programs, and they're all needed. We are operating out of a facility that was not made to house what we're trying to do. Yeah. But we cannot turn people away. People need food, people need emergency assistance, and so we're doing the best that we can in the space that we have. Financially, though, it's taken us about $110,000 every month to be able to support not only the employees that we have, but to pay for utilities and bills and all the good stuff. And so that's a lot, especially coming from a nonprofit standpoint.
Right.
My foray has been more with for-profit companies, so I'm able to use those numbers to figure out what we need to do to operate as an organization. But now in this nonprofit realm, that's the challenge, because a lot of our donations come from individuals and from churches and from folks like that. So in order to meet the needs, we have to really look and be lean to how we operate our business. So it would be great if we can have organizations, other organizations, to be able to donate and to help us out, because the need is there.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned needing other organizations to meet those resource needs. And I know that we've talked about it, and we talked about it a little bit when we came by Open Door, that homelessness is such a multi-layered problem. I've heard the Foundation for a Healthy High Point talk about upstream versus downstream issues, and there's a lot of upstream issues associated with a crisis like homelessness. And so while, the citizens driving by may see homelessness as one thing, their perception of it's one thing, can you gentlemen kind of help us unpack what are some of those other layers contributing to a crisis like homelessness, or, struggling with something like food security in High Point?
Definitely. When I came to Open Door in 2020, I had the same perception I think a lot of people have, is, it's a lot of people that's addiction, or they've just made bad decisions, and, here they are. I was very wrong. There are some of that is it does happen, but there is a lot of people out there that are experiencing homelessness that what has happened is just life. They've just had bad situations, bad circumstances. You hear some just heartbreaking stories, and then you see their situation. When you sit down and you start talking to people and you hear that it was unemployment, or they just wrong place, wrong time, or they've just got a family history that wasn't really conducive to them taking those next steps in life. We take for granted a lot of times, a support system of family and friends and community. And a lot of people just get left behind sometimes. And that's where Open Door can really step in and kind of give people that second chance, that place to, I call it often a soft place to land, so they can kind of get back on their feet, and we're going to be there to support them and try to help them make those next steps and move forward in life and have a productive, successful, future.
And recently I attended one of your all's events and heard from a couple of the men that had been staying in the shelter. And I think that was the message I took from them that resonated the most, was that they had this place where they felt valued, where they could start back to the life that they wanted.
Yes. And
I think about the way that our culture, we have a kind of view of the undeserving poor, right? Like if you're poor, if you're homeless, you have brought it on yourself, you have a character deficiency, there's something wrong with you, because we want to absolve ourselves.
You didn't try hard enough.
Right. Yeah. If you just would have just right through that mental health crisis, or right through that.
Yeah.
And we know intellectually, like addiction and mental health, and these things are not things that we choose, right?
But it feels easier to stomach. So you're just like, this is,
But even the mental health aspect and things, addiction, those are things that people see. But there's a lot of times that, for example, one of the gentlemen that spoke the other night at our event, he said that he's 24 years old. He's been homeless for 12 years. When he got to Open Door, it was the first time he had slept on a mattress in over 10 years. He's only 24. I mean, at 12, if you're homeless, he doesn't have a mental issues. He doesn't even have addiction issues. He just had life circumstances.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people just don't see that. And we've just been fortunate and blessed in our lives where, or at least I have, where I've never had to experience that. I've never had to worry about where my next meal came from. I take a mattress for granted every single night. I mean, I thought about it when I went home that night. Like, I've never at any point in my life, even if I went camping, I took an air mattress. Like, it was like I've never had to worry about sleeping on the ground. And this poor kid has been doing it for over 10 years, and he's only 24.
Yeah.
That's where I think people need to really understand that homelessness in need is not just mental health and addiction. There's a whole gamut of things that lead people into those situations.
That's helpful. I mean, just that kind of pushing back against our misperceptions, our cultural just the way that we think about it, because you all see the reality
every day
that most of us don't see. And there's so much
one of the
that's
things
layered onto to homelessness that
absolutely
is inaccurate.
I saw I read a book. The name escapes me. I think it's called Hungry Eaters. It was a guy, he had written this book about his experiences. And he said, when you're on a street corner, if you're in the median and you're trying to get money, he's like, if people don't give you money, he's like, I totally understood that. He's like, some people don't, especially in today's society, a lot of people don't have cash on them anyways. He's like, but the fact that people intentionally don't make eye contact and will look the other direction. And he's like, that was so dehumanizing, where it's like, we know there's a problem there, but we're just going to intentionally look the other way and not even address you as a person. And he's like, one of the best feelings, and he's like, that he experienced was if people pull up to a stop sign, even if they just kind of wave or just nod, just to acknowledge that, yes, you are a human being. You do need to have some semblance of respect just for being alive that is often taken for granted because people will just look the other way. And that really kind of hit home with me, because working in this environment with these guys every day, they've never articulated it like that, but you see that.
Well, I think, as a community, you all are doing so much to just help us think about what it means to be community and what our responsibility is to everybody in our community. Because we do see homelessness in High Point. It is a topic of conversation because people drive down the street
all the time
and they see it. And I think as we have come out of the pandemic, people are out of their houses driving, people headed back to work. We see it more. And so I know, we have lost businesses in High Point because of people that were loitering, down at the Sheets on South Main. That's been a stressor for a lot of our small business leaders. And I guess I'm curious, as you all think about homelessness across our community, what do you see that our community needs to be doing to address homelessness that we're not doing right now?
Obviously, we talk a lot about the day center project that we can get into a little later.
Yeah, we're going to need to get into that.
That's going to take some discussion.
Yeah.
But right now we're seeing such an increase. In May we served 4,700 meals in May. In June it jumped to 7,200 in 1 month and hasn't been below 7,000 since. The need is just exponentially increasing so much. Last month, and Orel can correct me, but normally we're doing like a 250 households for emergency assistance, but that equates to about 325 individuals. Last month was 521?
521.
521 last month.
And that's like rent, utilities?
No, that's just people that come to get a food box.
Oh, these are the food boxes.
Yeah, this is just food box. Wow. Rent, utilities is always a need because one of our primary things is we just don't want to see people ever enter homelessness if they can't pay their rent. If you're $200 short and you're getting ready to get evicted, if we can bridge that gap, that's what we're going to try to do.
Yeah. Wow.
You're exactly right. Yeah, and that's what we're here for.
And for the homelessness numbers, you all are housing right now 40 to 50?
Right now at Open Door's main facility, we have 45. And then we've got 15 at our veterans facility. So we're housing 60 total individuals right now.
And 45 in a facility that was built for 12.
12 to 15.
Wow. And that's not necessarily someplace they can be during the day, correct? And it's for a certain period of time?
Yes. So we're labeled a 30-day emergency facility. Now it's kind of at our discretion because if we help someone get a job and they've been there for 21 days, we help them get a job. If you tell them they have to leave at day 30, they're going to end up losing a job.
Sure.
So we work with people as much as we can. We obviously don't want to be your permanent home because the goal is to help people progress.
Yeah.
But we are 30 days right now is kind of our standard, but then
they stay with you in the evening, but they're not at your facility all day.
No, the only people that are there during the day, we have people leave at 8 in the morning
Yeah.
8 in the morning, come back at 5 in the afternoon, which again doesn't help with the loitering downtown and in front of businesses, but it gives us opportunity to kind of clean and fix up. The only people that are there that can be there, if we get guys, help them get jobs that are second and third shift.
Yeah.
Then obviously they need to
rest,
sleep during the day. So, but other than that, and there's, maybe 2 or 3 of those situations kind of ongoing all the time, but usually the majority of the guys are not there during the day.
So hence the need for a day center.
Right.
So
can we jump into that? Yeah, please.
That seems like
everything's
a good segue.
segueing into the day center.
I mean, as we're talking about this, it's like, so this is something that people in High Point have worked on and off for 20-something years. Mm-hmm. You all are finally making headway.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
So give us some of the details. Tell us about what the plans are and why. Like, what is the day center going to bring to High Point?
When I got to Open Door in 2020, I saw the immediate need of what was there. And in my previous career, I was a city manager, so I could put on the city manager hat and go, this is a real need for the city itself. Mm-hmm. And so I took it to my board. We started talking about it, and we started trying to do strategic planning and going, what's our 1-year plan, 5-year plan, 10-year plan? And we really had no plan beyond tomorrow, because it was just in this kind of business, it's kind of volatile with, you've got a lot of turnover. People are very transient. I don't mean volatile in like a violent way. It's just
like crisis
turbulent life.
Yeah. Right.
And so took it to my board. They thought it was a great idea. And that was my 10-year vision of what we could do. Because of COVID, the way things happened, there was a lot of federal, city government money that started being distributed. And my 10-year plan suddenly became about a 5-year plan. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, if all goes well, it would be sooner than that. And we actively started discussing it 2021, about midway through 2021. So we're, not even fully 2 years into the discussions. But we've made a lot of headway. Yeah. It will make a huge impact on the community. Like Joe was saying, it's apparently there's been a lot of discussion for many years about we need to have it. And I've talked to a lot of other community people, and they said there was always either money to do it and no one to lead the project, or there was someone to lead the project, but there was no money. Yeah. This is the first time it's kind of all fell into place at the same time.
So with a day center, I mean, what are some of those components that will be, provided there? And what are some of the ways that will contribute to those successful outcomes for the people it serves?
I think operationally, Orel can address a lot of those, the programming and the numbers of that.
Yeah, so programming wise, of course, we're going to offer more when it comes to services that we have with emergency assistance. But one of the things we want to hit is mental health. Mm-hmm. So we will, of course, partner with other agencies that offer those things that we either don't have or maybe weak in to help us out, because we know, again, the need has increased and the need is always still there. Mm-hmm. There are also other services that we are not able to offer yet, but again, it's because of the facility that we have, it may be something that we can offer down the road. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, right now we're a men's shelter. Mm-hmm. We've had other people ask us about women, about families as well, and offering those services. Again, we cannot offer that now, but with the facility we have, that's probably something to take a look at. The other thing that we want to also offer is a sort of a transitional home situation, where those that have done well, they have a job, they're able to stay in our shelter, and after they have stayed in our shelter for 30 days, they may need to be able to go somewhere else. They may not have the wherewithal right then to handle the finances, because a lot of times, and Ryan always speaks to this, when someone has a job that has not had one in a while, and all of a sudden they make $1,000, they may not know how to handle that. And so we will offer financial assistance. But in that financial assistance, we will also help them be able to budget. Because if they have $1,000 and rent is $100, they may splurge it on something else, not realizing, hey, there's taxes come out of that money, and there's things that we have to do. So all of a sudden they don't have $100. So if we were to give them housing outside of our area, they may, within 2 or 3 months, be evicted. So we will have a transitional home situation on our campus where, for example, they can stay there, learn how to pay $100, whatever it is that we may come up with. And so once they get that under their feet, then we can be able to transition them into their own home.
It sounds like so much of that is around sustainability, right?
Exactly.
That it's not just, let's slap a Band-Aid on this. Oh, you're in a home. Okay, good.
Correct.
We solved it.
Yeah,
It's that sustainable situation. So what are some of those elements of sustainability that are so important when addressing someone experiencing homelessness?
I think, just to kind of rewind a little bit,
Sure.
is I think a lot of people don't really understand what a day center is. And a day center is specifically for our need, is somewhere for people that are experiencing homelessness, teetering on homelessness, to go do the things that a lot of us take for granted on a daily basis. A place to get a haircut, a place to wash your clothes, even charge your cell phone. So that's kind of the primary goal of a day center. Obviously, we'll be serving the food and the things we do now, but it'll be to do, we're trying to partner with a couple of different medical facilities to have nurses on site, because there's a lot of guys that example I've been using a lot lately is we had a guy we sent to the emergency room by ambulance 6 consecutive days. Wow. He had diabetes. He just couldn't get it under control. And he didn't really understand exactly what he had. I mean, he understood he was sick and he knew he had diabetes, but he wasn't understanding he needed to be checking his sugar every 2 hours and things like this. And then it would just spiral out of control. And so the hospital get him leveled back out. They send him right back to us. If we have a medical nurses on site and just to check people's sugar every couple hours, it's going to just save significant amount of money for the city and for medical costs. So that's just one aspect. So what we say a lot is, and I've visited 11 different day centers throughout the country. And what we say a lot is when people come to the day center, we're going to address their immediate crisis. So that can be something as minor as I need somewhere to charge my cell phone, or, I'm having a diabetic problem right now and I can't even get to the hospital. So we want to get people out of crisis, because you can't make intelligent, well thought out decisions if you're in a crisis.
Yeah.
So what can we do to help you make those steps immediately that we can help you, right? Like on the spot right then. And then moving forward, if you're homeless, but you need your cell phone charged, but that's your crisis at the moment, let's get your cell phone charged. But now let's talk about what can we do to help you get off the streets? What can we're going to feed you, we're going to clothe you. What can we do now to take those next steps through our programs that will hopefully better your life going forward?
Love that.
Well, and you've been getting a lot of traction.
Yes.
With the day center. I know you all have been able to attract a good bit of public funding for that, and are starting the process of bringing in the private dollars to support it. How do you see that transforming our city? So when the day center is up and running, how is High Point different?
My vision of it is, and I'll let Orel address that as well, but we have a lot of people in the city that tends to loiter around the city. You see a lot of people on the street corners that's collecting money or trying to do that, or they're on the street at nights. And that leads to not only a lot of police calls and a lot of guys that get in trouble for really no reason. They just have nowhere to go. I mean, you get a trespassing call, but you had nowhere else to be. What do you expect? Right. So what I would really like is somewhere for people to come that we can work with them, help them get through again their crisis of whatever that is, and get them on their feet. In that way, we kind of pull the problem away from downtown in the middle of the city, but we're consolidating enough that we're addressing the problem and being able to help people. And I think long term, the benefits to the city itself is just going to be exponential, because again, things running the ambulance service, if we've got nurses there that can help, the police calls for guys that are trespassing, all of those kind of things, hopefully we're going to alleviate. And just along the way, if we can keep people with us, helping them understand, there is a better tomorrow for you, so you don't have to be living in the woods. It's going to just clean up a lot of the mess that you see around that gets left behind by people when they are living like that.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Ryan brought that up, because that's what I was going to talk about. Is all these folks are already here. With North Carolina having so much traction as being the business hub.
Yeah.
There are people right now in tent homes, or whatever you want to call it, out in the woods. They're here, and more is coming.
Yeah.
And so to have this day center, a place where they can get a shower and stuff like that, things like you said that we take for granted, they will be able to have a means to not only be able to take a shower, but they have a facility that can help them get jobs and different things like that, even from a medical standpoint. One of the things that I do see happening as well is that a lot of these good workers, they're in the streets. And that's where I think that the day center will be so positive for High Point, is that a lot of these workers that we're looking for, that we cannot find, they're out there. But with them coming to the day center, us meeting them where their needs are, forming a family, because you will not understand unless you're there every day. When you speak to someone like we do, they connect with us because it's like, hey, you're normal people. Well, you're a normal person too, and they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And they come every day, and we're able to help them. If we're able to help them get a job, and a lot of these companies and corporations that are looking for great people, they're right there, like I said. And so a lot of times they also have this certification that these jobs are looking for. You just wouldn't see them normally. So that's what I see the day center being able to do.
I think it's also important to note that the day center campus also has expanded places for homeless men to stay.
Yes.
Right. We've talked about that. How many is it going to move up toward?
The shelter itself, we're shooting to have around 128 beds.
Okay.
And then we want to have a smaller transitional housing of 4 to 6 smaller units that are maybe 2 beds for guys that they can, like a step down program, you can go there.
Yeah.
And to kind of reiterate one thing that Orel touched on is good workers. One story about, just real quick, we had a guy come through a couple of years ago, and he had his own little landscaping business. Well, in this day and age, there's a lot of people that live paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
But he was a great worker. All of his lawnmowers was on the back of his trailer, and had a car accident and totaled all of his lawnmowers and his truck. Well, he missed his 2 months rent. He's living with us. He came in and he's like, I've never been homeless. I just kind of in a situation. Insurance hasn't paid for what I need. It didn't cover the cost to recoup my lawnmowers, so here I am. He was a great worker. He wasn't there. I bet he wasn't there 3 weeks. We helped him write a resume because he'd never had one, because he'd always had his own business. Yeah. And actually Home Depot hired him. And he was like, as soon as I can get a job, I'm out. We helped him get a job. We helped him get into an apartment he could afford. And then, as far as I know, he went on and was thriving. But it's not that people don't have the work ethic or they're not trying. It's just life happens sometimes. Yeah.
It sounds like also just that gap that needs to be filled. And I feel like that is where a community has to be a community, because you're filling those gaps for people where maybe, if you don't have a friend or family member who's able to help out, where can you turn? And I feel like it's, clear that that's kind of a gap that Open Door is filling. I know we've talked about before that success and what a successful outcome looks like can look different for everybody, that it doesn't always have to look like the same. You shared that story. Are there other stories that y'all have about, people who experience success to some degree coming through an Open Door program and what that might have looked like for them, even if it's not traditionally what people would imagine?
We were just talking about it this morning. One is just a funny story. We had a guy that's in one of our housing programs, and his goal in life, and I don't know why, but success looks different to everyone. He wanted a red couch. He bought him a red, like, sectional couch that's like fake leather, bright red. To him, it's the greatest possession he's ever owned. He is so proud of his couch. And it's little things like that, that, because if somebody can meet one goal like that, it kind of sounds like when you say that, it's like, well, maybe that's not my version of success, but it was his. But when somebody can meet that need and you go, okay, well, you got that far. You
So
met
what's
your
next?
goal.
Yeah.
Now you've kind of given them that hope that, hey, maybe there's the next thing I can.
Because again, it's someone believing in you and empowering you to say, I'm going to set this goal and I'm going to meet it. And that's what we all need in our lives,
Yeah. So it's interesting because we have a lot, I've joked with a lot of guys that's come through and the success thing has come up. And what's success look like? I was like, if I don't see you again, except if you come back here to volunteer,
Right.
If we get you a job into a house and you go on in life, if we don't see you on the streets and you're successful in your endeavor, that's what and a lot of that is very hard to put a number to.
Sure.
A lot of grant organizations is, how many people did you help? And we can talk about the 7,200 meals and the housing almost 1,000 people a year and the day center with 128 beds. We can talk about the numbers, but the actual people you help them get a job, you help them get an apartment, you help them, reconnect with family that maybe they haven't had those experiences in a long time.
Well, you all have given us a sense of the power of what Open Door is doing, and certainly the future that's ahead, because the need is only growing, as you said, so we've got to respond to that, right? We've got to be ready to step up as a community to do that, and I appreciate you all doing that. It makes me think we've got you're coming from private industry, and you're coming from a background in city government, and that makes quite a team for figuring out how to do this public-private partnership in a way that can pay the bills, right? Right, Orel?
Right, you're right.
You're looking at this going, we're not out here to make money, but you all have.
We would like
We're
to
not
break
out here to
even.
lose money.
You got to break even, right? You got to do this, and I know the Congdon Foundation has been big supporters of Open Door for a long time and sees the value in that. It is sometimes a difficult argument to make to donors about why you're giving money. And part of it is the stereotypes around homelessness. Like, why am I going to give money to people that don't deserve it? And it's like, well, we got to get in front of you and help you understand who you're really helping and what you're doing and how, a dollar invested here is saving you so much money down the road. Yeah. Right.
One thing I've told a lot of people, I'm like, the thing is, if you've got homelessness, you typically have an increase in crime. You have an increase in garbage, trash on the streets. If you see the tent cities, it's just kind of an eyesore. Even if you have no heart for the homeless people themselves, if you just want to be that self-interested about it, it's hurting your tax value. If you don't even care that, I don't even care they're homeless, but you care about your property tax value, you still need the town cleaned up.
And that's the city manager side of it.
That's the city manager side of it. But it's like, what can we do that everyone benefits? Right. And there is no downside. The one thing, and I tell this everywhere I talk, is there's never been a 7-8-year-old kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they say homeless. Just no one wants to be that. And so what can we do to help people not be in that situation? And as a community, that it helps all of us, because if you've got a component out here that is in that kind of need and we're just ignoring it, what does that say for the rest of us? So, put your own family in that situation. Do you want your family living like that? No one of means wants that. So why is it okay for somebody else's family to live like that?
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure to have in the notes for this episode how people can can donate, but also to come and serve, to
Yes,
volunteer.
Absolutely.
You know, I think just stepping into your facility and meeting some of the guys and volunteering at the Father's table can be a really transformative experience for folks.
Again, seeing those people as people, they're your neighbors. They're, like you said, it's not these people versus these people. We're all people. We're all here in this city. Let's gather together.
And that's a huge service that you all are doing. Orel, when did you move to High Point? How long have you been here?
2014. So I've been here for 9 years.
And you came in 2020. Well, we are fortunate as a community to have the two of you step in to help really lead a charge that this community has needed for a long time.
We're very fortunate at Open Door right now. We have an outstanding staff. I mean, I've been able to hire some very quality people with really strong backgrounds. I've got we've got 32 employees right now, 18 full-time. And of my 18 full-time, 6 or 7 have postgraduate degrees. So they could go somewhere else and get paid a whole lot more and really, use their talents to make money. Instead, they're using their talents to try to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
And so I think that speaks volumes for Open Door and the kind of people we have working for us. So
that's the other side of nonprofits that we don't usually talk about is they actually employ a huge portion of our community, and they employ some of our best young professionals and a lot of really talented, big-hearted people that we want in our community because they are involved in our community.
Yeah. And it's just it is one of those things that having a staff where their heart's in the right place is, I mean, there's no amount of money that can cover that. I mean, you can't pay enough to get somebody to care. And so right now, I mean, and people say, I've heard before, well, why do you need 32 employees? 38 is what we would consider fully staffed. We're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. At any given time, you can come to Open Door and there will be at a minimum of 2, most time 4 employees working between Arthur Cassell, Transitional Housing, and Open Door. So, Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving, we're open.
24/7, 365.
And serving 3 meals a day.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful learning more about each of you personally, but also just, this work. It's important work for the city. We want more people to know about it and hear about it and get invested in it. And that's why we're doing this podcast. Because we want to get the word out, and I appreciate everything you all are doing.
We really appreciate you having us. Just bringing awareness goes a long way. So thank you so much for thinking of this.
Thank you.
Wow. I feel like we just scratched the surface of both their stories and how they came into this space, but also just the depth of work that Open Door is doing in our community. I spoke with Ryan recently because when we recorded this, he mentioned they're up to 7,000 meals a month.
Right.
As of March of 2024, they are up to an average of 12,000 meals a month that they're serving.
And what was that facility built for?
Oh, it was built for 50 meals a day. So, a fraction of what they're actually doing. Right. Same with the shelter, the area where men can stay for that 30 days. It was built for 12 to 15 men, and now they're housing up to 75. And they've made such resourceful use of that space, adding in bunk beds and finding ways to make it work, but they shouldn't have to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, they've clearly outgrown it.
Absolutely.
Right? The ministry's grown, the need's grown. And so that's why they're talking about next steps. As a community, I think we really have a responsibility to support them. I'm so glad that Open Door is taking the kind of leadership to say, look, this is a need that we've outgrown. If we want to keep serving our community, we need a new space. We need a bigger space. We need a more comprehensive space. It can't just be a shelter. Right. Got to have this day center piece. But it's going to take our whole community supporting that move. Because it is a kind of not in my backyard sort of thing, right? Everyone loves the idea until we propose where it's going to be. And it's really going to take some political will and just community support to to find the right place to expand this ministry and work. Like
Yeah.
it's really vital. So I'm proud though of the leadership that's there. Like there are people that can get this done.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the biggest takeaway too is that that's where that public advocacy comes in, right? That we're not just worried about the root problem, not just worried about the symptom, but actually worried about the root problem,
Right.
and building those relationships and those healthy networks through something like a day center where there's consistency, there's stability. That's so important to those root issues that Ryan and Orel both mentioned. I think too, like the biggest thing is after visiting the facility and meeting a lot of the staff and then also the guests there, I mean, get involved, volunteer. I mean, they have so many ripe
they need
opportunities.
people at the Father's table helping to
Absolutely.
serve those meals.
Yeah. 12,000 meals a month. That's going to take a lot of hands.
It's
Cooking a lot of food and serving a lot of plates. And
they're so resourceful about it. I mean,
Yeah.
they're one of the spaces where when I was at High Point, we would reclaim food from the High Point cafeterias and take it to Open Door, and they would prepare it and serve it. Like people just have to be thinking creatively. How can they help, volunteer, donate, get involved? Because it's more than that just Band-Aid. Like that's what reframed in my mind in this conversation, right? Like Open Door is not just a Band-Aid on a problem. They're really trying to get in to help people get out of the situation of homelessness and for our whole community to be able to do that. So it's really powerful work, and I'm just thankful to get to have that conversation.
Definitely. Yeah. All those links to all those ways to get involved, they'll be in our show notes. So hurry on down there, click and get involved. Yeah. Thanks, Joe, for joining us on the show today.
Yeah. Right back at you, Hannah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you to our guests from Open Door. And thank you, as always, to our technical producers at Captivate Media. We'll see you again here in a few weeks.